Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. This video is meant as an introduction to the team called the New Mutants. The first appearance of the team was published in the Marvel graphic novel aptly named The New Mutants. The original members of the New Mutants were gathered by Professor Charles Xavier and Moira McTaggart. Some of you might already be familiar with these two characters from the Uncanny X-Men series. Professor Xavier lost his students, the X-Men, in battle with the Brood, thinking they were dead and was grieving over their loss. Vowing to no longer gather an army of mutants to try and do good for the world, he was somewhat hesitant to lead and teach his young new mutants, in fear of them getting hurt or dying while risking their lives and lose another team of young people once again. He eventually changed his mind with the help of Moira and welcomed these new students in his mansion and school. The New Mutants' original lineup consists of Rain Sinclair, Wolfsbane, Roberto da Costa, Sunspot, Sam Guthrie, Cannonball, Danielle Moonstar, Mirage, and Sean Koyman, Karma. In the first team-up, they battle a familiar villain from the X-Men line of comics, but before all that, we get introduced to them one by one. Rain Sinclair, Wolfsbane. In the Highlands of Scotland, we see Moira McTaggart being scared in her tracks by a wolf. This wolf crash lands and reverts to a human form, and Moira recognizes her instantly as Rain Sinclair, a local girl whom she helped deliver as a baby. Rain was chased and tried to escape from a mob of religious fanatics, who saw her as a devil's child. Instantly Moira tries to help Rain and then gets confronted by the mob. Threats are being issued, but they happen to be on the Kinross Plains, which is owned by Moira. This allows Moira to get rid of the mob and bring Rain to a safer place. Roberto da Costa, Sunspot. Roberto, a Brazilian living in Rio de Janeiro, is taking part in a soccer match, which is being watched by his dad, Emmanuel da Costa, and his girlfriend Juliana. Since Roberto is such a good soccer player, he gets roughly tackled by members of the opposing team. Having a short fuse, this triggers his mutant ability, and he pushes one of the bullies off of him, hurling him yards away due to his immense strength. And this scares most of the audience members. Meanwhile, we see the whole situation is being watched by a person wearing very distinct clothing. Sam Guthrie, Cannonball. Sam, a US citizen in Kentucky, is about to descend into a coal mine owned by Pierce Consolidated to grind hours of tough labor with his colleagues. He mentions to his boss that he chooses to remain in Kentucky to provide for his mother and siblings, regardless of him having gained a scholarship. His father, who used to work in the coal mines as well, was proud of Sam having earned a scholarship. But Sam now does what he has to do to try and make sure that one of his brothers and sisters will be able to go to college or university. As the shift progresses, the mine starts to cave in. Everyone scrambles, but Sam remains because his boss is trapped. He tries to rescue him, but as the cave-in traps them both, Sam is overcome by an adrenaline boost which triggers his mutant ability, allowing them to escape. All this is also being spied on by the same character as before. Danielle Moonstar, Mirage. We then switch over to Danielle Moonstar, a Native American from Colorado who is meditating, trying to come at peace with herself. Apparently she has been troubled much as of late. She's being approached by a wild cat-like animal and seems to have some kind of friendship with that animal. The cat gets scared away by someone else approaching, who happens to be her grandfather. He tells her that he has invited Charles Xavier over to come and talk and possibly help Danielle with whatever has been troubling her. She pretty much flips out over a white man being invited over, and her anger activates her uncontrolled power of projecting other people's greatest fears. They are both startled by what's happened, and Danielle even more so. She apologizes and says she couldn't help herself, to which her grandfather responds by saying that is specifically why she needs to go see Xavier. Danielle says she doesn't want to, because in her opinion, whites are the enemies of the natives. Her grandfather responds by saying that this is nonsense, since Charles and Danielle's father were best friends, blood brothers, and he even calls Charles family. He also commands Danielle to meet Charles and to obey him, like she would her grandfather or even her father if he had been alive. Danielle reluctantly consents. Of course, this is all being spied on by the same figure, who we now find out is Donald Pierce of the Hellfire Club, who's planning to jump the meeting between Danielle and Professor Xavier. He says so in the company of a woman named Tessa, who is also part of the Hellfire Club as an assistant to Sebastian Shaw, the Black King. Tessa appears to be held captive by Pierce. Apparently Donald Pierce hates mutants, and, as seen in previous stories of the Uncanny X-Men title, the inner circle of the Hellfire Club is slowly being taken over by more and more mutants. A development which totally disgusts Pierce, and he'll try anything to put a stop to this. Next we see Danielle waking up from a nightmare, sensing something is wrong with the grandfather. She jumps on her horse and rushes out to look for him, but when she finds him, it's already too late. She finds him dead, knowing the authorities will probably regard it as a drunken old Indian who wandered on the highway and got himself killed. Danielle is convinced that this is not the case, that this is what the vision of his greatest fear was showing. Danielle suspects her grandfather to have been threatened by those characters in the vision, and that they are the reason why he is now dead. She wishes her grandfather had told her about this, so they both could have faced him together. She swears vengeance. Sean Koima, Karma. Sean Koima was introduced in Marvel Comics at an earlier time, in a story involving her relatives, more specifically her uncle and siblings, as well as Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four. At the end of the story, Reed Richards, also known as Mr. Fantastic, suggested to get into contact with Professor X to help Sean out with getting to know her powers better. She eventually does, and being a Vietnamese refugee with no place to call her home, she takes up residence in Xavier's mansion to get to know her mutant abilities better. We catch up with Sean, Professor X, Moira and Rain at the mansion where Moira and Charles are conducting some tests on Sean. Charles says that the tests point out strong psionic readings rivaling his own, and that he would like to see a demonstration of her powers. This is when we learn that Sean is actually scared of using her powers on others, because she becomes aware of her subject's thoughts, feelings and memories, and gradually begins to think and act like them. She mentions that she is actually against having such power, and that she'd rather be normal. But she also thinks that since she has these kind of powers, it's better to learn to control them, rather than be controlled by them instead. At this moment, Moira offers herself up as a guinea pig for Sean to experiment on. Sean takes over Moira's body and mind, and starts speaking in her own voice from Moira's mouth. This of course totally freaks out Rain, and she immediately turns into a half-wolf mode. Charles commands Rain to revert back to human form telepathically, which is a new sensation for Rain, and she does so, asking Xavier how she could hear him without using her ears. Sean sets Moira's body down in a chair and releases her mind. Apparently Moira has no recollection of everything which has just happened. It seems like she momentarily ceased to exist, according to the censors. The four of them take a break from the examinations and will eat some lunch, during which we learn more about Sean's backstory. And we also learn just how out of place Rain feels, and how her religious views makes her think that their powers have been gotten from Satan. Charles says that that's nonsense, and that they were simply born different, and that Satan has nothing to do with that. This is also when we find out about Charles' reservations of leading a new team of mutants, since he just recently lost his previous team, the X-Men. Moira, knowing Charles really well and also his doubts, convinces Charles during a telepathic conversation between the two, without the two teenagers being aware of what's going on, nor are they aware of the X-Men losing their lives for that matter. Moira mentions that the X-Men losing their lives is not more important than realizing the dream Charles had, nor is it more important than trying to help out these two young girls who are in need of a teacher. She also mentions that Charles and her are old lovers. Apparently Moira pushed all the right buttons, and Charles agrees to help the girls out. Next the doorbell rings, and Moira goes to see who's there. While she's gone, we see Rain having an internal monologue about how to treat Moira, since Moira seems to treat Rain as an equal, rather than simply being an orphan. Once again we see Rain internally struggling with her current situation. It is also very weird to her. Sean mentions her worries about her little brother and sister, and how she will not be able to have a job, care for her siblings and be at the school. Xavier then offers her a job at the school, so she doesn't have to take up a separate job. At this moment Moira returns and she brings a letter which has just arrived. It's Danielle's grandfather's invitation letter. Charles reads it, and apparently the possible third mutant joining the school has just presented herself. and thus Charles suggests a road trip to Colorado. And with this, the end has come for part 1 of the introduction to the New Mutants. Next episode we will continue with this story from the graphic novel. Thanks for watching this video and I hope you liked it. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, because that will help me out in growing the channel and being able to produce more videos like this one. See you next episode.